Let's talk about Patti Davis today, a woman whose life has played out under the relentless glare of public scrutiny. Yet she's always fought to define herself on her own terms. You probably recognize her as the daughter of Ronald and Nancy Reagan, that iconic duo who dominated American politics in the 1980s. But Patti's narrative goes far beyond the White House intrigue. It's the story of a young girl who often felt unseen and unloved in her own household. Someone who pursued independence through bold, sometimes shocking choices that captivated and divided the nation. Over the years, through turmoil and reconciliation, she discovered paths to forgiveness and self-understanding. Her experiences might resonate with your own reflections on family dynamics, the weight of expectations, and the long road to healing. Join me as we explore the layers of her remarkable journey. To understand Patti Davis, we need to step back into the America of the early 1950s, a period brimming with post-war hope and transformation. The nation was riding high on economic growth, with families flocking to new suburbs, televisions becoming household staples, and the baby boom reshaping society. Hollywood's influence was waning from its peak, but its stars still held sway over cultural ideals. Ronald Reagan, Patti's father, was in the midst of reinventing himself, from a successful actor known for roles in films like King's Row to a prominent figure in the Screen Actors Guild, where he championed anti-communist sentiments and conservative principles. His voice carried authority on radio broadcasts, laying the groundwork for his political ascent. Nancy Reagan, his second wife and a former actress herself, brought a sense of grace and determination to their union. She had appeared in movies like The Doctor and The Girl, but by the early 1950s, her focus shifted to family life. Their home in Los Angeles embodied the era's blend of traditional values and ambition, with strict routines and an eye toward public image. Yet behind closed doors, it was a space marked by emotional restraint and unspoken tensions. Patricia Ann Reagan entered this world on October 21, 1952, in the bustling city of Los Angeles, California. Growing up in the affluent neighborhood of Bel Air, Patti experienced the privileges of wealth: private education, spacious homes, and connections to influential circles. She attended the prestigious John Thomas Dye School for her elementary years, where the curriculum emphasized discipline and achievement. However, this environment also amplified her sense of isolation. Her father, Ronald, was charismatic and engaging in public settings, delivering speeches with warmth and conviction, but at home, he often seemed distant, preoccupied with his career and scripts. Patti would later describe him as someone who was affectionate toward the world at large, but reserved with his own family, except perhaps in his unwavering devotion to Nancy. Her mother, Nancy, projected an image of poise and control, but she carried deep-seated insecurities from her own upbringing. Nancy had been abandoned by her biological mother, Edith Luckett Davis, for several formative years, left in the care of relatives while Edith pursued her acting career. This history of rejection influenced Nancy's parenting style, which Patti perceived as exacting and sometimes cold. The 1950s cultural norms of conformity and family unity clashed with these internal dynamics, fostering in Patti a growing desire to rebel against the constraints she felt. As the decade gave way to the 1960s with its waves of social change, civil rights movements, anti-war protests, and the rise of counterculture, Patti absorbed these influences, planting seeds for her future independence. Patti's childhood and adolescence were a tapestry of apparent normalcy interwoven with underlying strains. As part of a blended family, she navigated relationships with siblings, from her father's previous marriage to actress Jane Wyman. Her half-sister, Maureen Reagan, born in 1941, was outgoing and involved in her father's political world, while her adopted half-brother, Michael Reagan, born in 1945, often felt like an outsider himself. Patti noted in her reflections how Michael was frequently excluded from family outings, such as being sent to summer camp alone during group vacations, which highlighted the subtle hierarchies and divisions within the household. In 1958, the family expanded with the birth of her younger brother, Ron Reagan, who became the recipient of much of Nancy's tenderness. Patti observed that her mother seemed to favor boys, a pattern that deepened her feelings of alienation. Family life appeared idyllic from the outside, holidays at the ranch, posed photographs for the press, but Patti struggled with a persistent sense of not belonging. She couldn't recall a time when walking through the front door brought a genuine feeling of safety or warmth. By her teenage years, Patti was attending the Orm School, a boarding institution in Arizona where she graduated in 1970. This time away from home allowed her some breathing room, but it also intensified her introspection about her family's expectations. College followed, first at Northwestern University, where she majored in creative writing and drama, immersing herself in literature and theater that encouraged self-expression. She later transferred to the University of Southern California for 2 years, continuing to hone her artistic skills. However, academia didn't fully satisfy her restless spirit. In her early 20s, as her father served as governor of California from 1967 to 1975 and began eyeing national politics, Patti took a decisive step toward autonomy. In 1974, she legally changed her surname to Davis, adopting her mother's maiden name as a way to distance herself from the Reagan brand and build a career free from its shadow. This act symbolized her determination to forge an independent identity, even as it stirred family tensions. During this period, Patti delved into Hollywood's vibrant, sometimes chaotic scene, experimenting with lifestyles that contrasted sharply with her parents' conservative values. The 1970s marked a phase of romance, adventure, and personal risk for Patti. She entered into a passionate relationship with Bernie Leadon, a talented guitarist and founding member of the rock band Eagles. Their cohabitation without marriage was a direct affront to the traditional morals upheld by her family, leading Nancy to temporarily cut off communication with her daughter in disapproval. Despite the fallout, this period sparked creativity. Patti collaborated with Bernie on the song "I Wish You Peace," which appeared on the Eagles' acclaimed 1975 album, One of These Nights. The lyrics, advocating for harmony and understanding, echoed Patti's own longing for resolution in her personal life. However, this era also introduced darker elements. Patti grappled with an addiction to prescription amphetamines that began during her teenage years and persisted into her 20s. She openly admitted to engaging in reckless behaviors, such as driving under the influence of cocaine, using these substances as a means to escape the emotional emptiness she felt. At the age of 24, influenced by her observations of Nancy's challenging approach to motherhood, marked by mood swings and what Patti perceived as favoritism, she made the profound decision to undergo two-ball ligation. She described the procedure as a straightforward surgery to sever and cauterize the fallopian tubes, preventing any possibility of pregnancy. This choice reflected her deep-seated fears of perpetuating familial patterns of pain and inadequacy. As Ronald Reagan's political career soared, culminating in his election as President of the United States in 1980, Patti's path diverged dramatically. While the nation celebrated the new administration's conservative agenda, Patti aligned herself with progressive causes. She emerged as a fervent anti-nuclear activist, participating in demonstrations and rallies that directly opposed her father's policies on arms buildup. Living under constant Secret Service protection added layers of complication. Agents shadowed her every move, turning personal freedoms into logistical challenges. Dating became particularly arduous. Her brief romance with actor Timothy Hutton, for instance, withered under the intrusive surveillance. In a bold display of her convictions, Patti once shared a platform with civil rights leader Jesse Jackson, joining thousands in chants, calling for political change. She vividly remembered the disapproving stare of a Secret Service agent, as if urging her to exit the scene immediately. These actions not only highlighted her ideological differences, but also amplified the public perception of her as the black sheep of the Reagan family. Entering the 1980s, Patti pursued a career in acting, determined to succeed on merit rather than nepotism. Billed as Patricia Davis, she secured guest appearances on popular television series such as The Love Boat in 1979 and 1986, Ships in 1979, Fantasy Island in 1980, Vega in 1980, Nero Wolfe in 1981, Heart to Heart in 1982, Simon and Simon in 1983 and 1985, and Trapper John M.D. in 1983. She also featured in made-for-TV movies like Four Ladies Only in 1981, Night Partners in 1983, and episodes of Romance Theater in 1982. On the big screen, her roles included Michelle Chauvin in Curse of the Pink Panther in 1983, Rosita in Cocaine Wars in 1985, a reporter in Tango and Cash in 1989, and a part in the documentary The Last Party in 1993. Despite these credits, Hollywood proved unforgiving. Opportunities were inconsistent, and the shadow of her family's prominence often complicated her efforts to be seen as an individual talent. In search of personal stability amid the chaos, Patti married Paul Grilly in 1984. Grilly, a yoga instructor who helped pioneer the yin yoga style, represented a shift toward mindfulness and wellness in her life. The marriage was somewhat hasty, motivated in part by the desire to evade the constant oversight of Secret Service during her dating life. Their relationship endured for 6 years, ending in divorce in 1990. Patti chose not to have children, a decision consistent with her earlier surgical choice, and she has not remarried since. Throughout this time, her activism deepened. She vocally supported pro-choice positions on abortion and continued her anti-nuclear efforts, even as these stances created public clashes with her father's administration. Patti embraced an unconventional lifestyle, becoming a vegetarian, advocating against marijuana prohibition, and registering as a Democrat, in stark opposition to the Republican Party her parents championed. She even grew her own cannabis for personal use, a small act of defiance that underscored her commitment to personal freedoms. These choices positioned her at the center of the cultural battles raging in America during the Reagan era, where generational and ideological divides were widening. By the late 1980s, writing emerged as a powerful avenue for Patti to process and express her experiences. Her first novel, Homefront, published in 1986, drew heavily from her family's dynamics, portraying a fictionalized account of a governor's daughter navigating personal and political conflicts. The book ignited controversy for its apparent criticisms of her parents, drawing ire from supporters of the Reagans. Undeterred, she followed with Deadfall in 1989, another novel exploring themes of identity and rebellion. The pinnacle of this phase came with her 1992 autobiography, The Way I See It. This candid work laid bare the family's inner workings, alleging Nancy's reliance on prescription pills to manage stress, her intense outburst, and Ronald's emotional unavailability. Patti recounted how her father dismissed the Watergate scandal as a mere witch hunt, reflecting his loyalty to Richard Nixon, and depicted Nancy as skilled in re-editing her personal history to fit a more favorable narrative. The book achieved commercial success but widened the rift with her parents, who felt betrayed by the public airing of private matters. In hindsight, Patti expressed regret over the book's acerbic style, referring to it as the book that shall not be named, though she stood by the core truths it conveyed. For her, writing served as a therapeutic release, allowing her to articulate the lifelong feeling of insecurity in her childhood home. In 1994, at the age of 41, Patti made headlines once more with a daring photo shoot for Playboy magazine. Appearing on the cover and in a full-frontal pictorial spread, she challenged societal norms and reclaimed control over her image and body. The issue, one of Playboy's most debated, was accompanied by a VHS video feature amplifying its impact. This move was interpreted by some as a final rebellion against her conservative upbringing, while others saw it as an empowering statement of self-ownership. It capped a decade of public provocation, solidifying her reputation as a nonconformist. The mid-1990s ushered in a profound shift for Patti, prompted by her father's diagnosis with Alzheimer's disease in 1994. This devastating news softened the edges of long-standing animosities, prompting her to reflect more compassionately on their shared history. In 1995, she published Angels Don't Die, My Father's Gift of Faith, a book that highlighted Ronald's spiritual beliefs and their influence on her life, marking a departure from her earlier critical tone. Reconciliation unfolded gradually as Patti spent more time with her parents, witnessing the toll of the illness. By the early 2000s, as Ronald's condition deteriorated, her outlook evolved further. Her 2004 memoir, The Long Goodbye, provided an intimate chronicle of the 10-year progression of his Alzheimer's, portraying him not as a distant figure, but as a vulnerable human being. She described poignant scenes, such as his delight in everyday activities, like watching birds or feeding animals at the ranch, which revealed a childlike innocence amid the decline. Patti expanded her writing career, contributing articles to prominent publications including the New York Times, Newsweek, and Time, where she explored themes of family, politics, and personal growth. In 2007, her original screenplay, Spring Thaw, was adapted into the Hallmark Channel film Sacrifices of the Heart, featuring actors Melissa Gilbert and Ken Howard. This success demonstrated her versatility as a storyteller. Additional books followed, each adding depth to her body of work, Two Cats and the Woman. They Own in 2006 offered a whimsical look at companionship through pets. The Lives Our Mothers Leave Us in 2009 delved into the complexities of maternal relationships. Till Human Voices Wake Us in 2013, and The Blue Hour in 2013 were novels that wove fiction with emotional truths. The Wit and Wisdom of Gracie in 2014 celebrated animal insights, and The Earth Breaks in Colors in 2014 continued her exploration of human experiences. Patti's commitment to social causes matured alongside her personal evolution. In 2011, she established the Beyond Alzheimer's program at UCLA, an initiative providing support and resources for those affected by the disease, which she continues to oversee. Drawing from her father's battle, this work has helped countless families navigate similar challenges. Politically, she remained a vocal commentator. In September 2018, during the Senate hearings for Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh, Patti penned an op-ed for the Washington Post revealing her own experience of sexual assault by a studio executive nearly 4 decades earlier. She explained how the trauma lingered vividly, even as certain details faded, and used her story to underscore the shame that often prevents victims from speaking out, offering solidarity to Christine Blasey Ford, who had accused Kavanaugh of similar misconduct. The next year, in August 2019, Patti addressed a newly released audio recording from 1971, in which her father, then Governor Reagan, made racist remarks about African delegates during a phone call with President Richard Nixon. She confronted this painful revelation head-on, stating there was no excuse or justification for the words spoken. Yet, she balanced this with memories of her father's teachings on equality, that people of all skin colors were children of God, and his actions, such as standing by a black family threatened by the Ku Klux Klan. Patti believed that if confronted with the tape, Ronald would have offered a sincere apology, as it didn't align with the man she knew in many ways. In more recent times, Patti has continued to engage with contemporary issues. Following the 2018 mass shooting at a Pittsburgh synagogue, she criticized then President Donald Trump's inability to provide genuine consolation during national tragedies, suggesting the public stop expecting it from him. In October 2021, she voiced strong opposition to the unconditional release of John Hinckley Jr., the individual who attempted to assassinate her father in 1981, differing from her half-brother Michael's stance of forgiveness. The July 2024 assassination attempt on former President Trump evoked echoes of her family's past trauma, prompting Patti to speak out against political violence and its lasting emotional scars on loved ones. Her perspectives on her father's handling of the AIDS crisis are layered and thoughtful. Patti acknowledged the administration's delayed response, attributing it partly to homophobic influences among advisors who viewed the epidemic as divine punishment. However, she maintained that Ronald himself was not prejudiced against the gay community, having been raised in environments where he formed friendships without judgment. She admitted the timing and actions were flawed at every turn, but refused to oversimplify his character. Patti's most recent publication, Dear Mom and Dad, A Letter About Family, Memory, and the America We Once Knew, released in 2024, serves as a poignant culmination of her reflections. Structured as a heartfelt letter to her deceased parents, Ronald passed away in 2004 after a long battle with Alzheimer's, and Nancy followed in 2016. The book combines unflinching honesty with moments of rediscovered tenderness. By revisiting old family home movies, Patti uncovered evidence of affection she had long overlooked, such as Nancy's soft, nurturing interactions with her as a baby. This revelation challenged her previous narratives of emotional barrenness. Yet, the book also unearths deeply disturbing aspects of her past. Patti disclosed experiences of sexual abuse at the hands of her maternal grandmother, Edith Luckett Davis, during childhood visits when no one else was present. These incidents left her feeling isolated and voiceless, convinced that sharing them would lead to disbelief. Consequently, she chose not to attend Edith's funeral, a decision she now regrets, wishing she had risen above the pain to honor the potential for kindness in others. Patti never confided this to Nancy, suspecting her mother might have endured similar traumas and suppressed them, given Edith's history of abandoning Nancy at age 3 for 6 years while pursuing her career. Nancy had always downplayed this abandonment, insisting she understood her mother's choices, but Patti recognized it as a profound betrayal that shaped Nancy's guarded nature, and in turn, their mother-daughter relationship. The book also laments the erosion of American civility, contrasting the optimistic, respectful political landscape of her father's time with the current climate of division and hostility. Wrapping up our exploration, consider Patti at 72, actively writing and contemplating her path. No longer defined solely as the family's outlier, she has transformed her hardships into sources of insight. She reminds us that everyone bears wounds, yet we can choose to see past them to underlying affections. Her Odyssey illustrates the chaos of kinship, the challenge of absolution, and how grasping history illuminates future steps. Patti Davis endures in relevance for unveiling the delicate splendor inherent in human tales, including our own. Thank you for sharing this time. May it inspire deeper consideration in your daily reflections.